I am standing here on our future front porch here at the farm, and I was just going to give you a little, well, maybe not little, building update and how it's all going, and give you a walkthrough now that we have a lot of the framing fully done. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it, of the ideas that I shared with you when I first shared all about the design, like where we are, how you would walk through this house now that you can. So first, just for a little update on how it's going, or I should say how I'm doing with building, I feel like my personality is not super compatible with something like this because I tend to get very all in on some things. And sometimes I can, tame that and just live my life. But with a project like this, my brain is kind of spinning literally every day, just a little bit too much, trying to, make everything perfect. I feel like we have one shot at this because I don't ever plan to build again. We don't ever plan to move off this farm. This is the place we'll likely live forever. And so with all of that in my head, I'm probably putting a little bit too much gravity on every single situation. And I have to remember what a lot of people who have built before me have said. You can do things later. If you decide you don't want to put beadboard in a certain area right now, you can add beadboard later. Or, if we don't get all the doors finished, well, we can always swap out an antique door later. So I'm trying to keep that all in mind and just enjoy this process as much as possible. But it definitely can be a very stressful process, especially when I have so many hopes and dreams and plans wrapped up in this. So first, a view from the front porch. Now, of course, these aren't the actual columns yet. We have columns coming. I partnered with Chadsworth. They make really beautiful columns for all different styles. This front porch view is just, I love it. It's so peaceful. You can hear birds chirping. It's just really great. From this angle, it's really hard to see the porch detail. It goes, I don't know what my building terms are, but it goes higher there in the back, and then there's sort of like a triangle right there. When I'm at the barn, you can see it better, so I'll show you that in a little bit. But yeah, there will be, I believe, 6 columns across the front. We aren't doing, at this time, a railing. Now, I could see maybe at some point changing our minds about that, but aesthetically, I really like the way it looks without the railing. And then all of these concrete piers here, they will be wrapped with brick. So it'll look like brick porch post. Oh yeah, and obviously there are 6. So that will line up with all of the pillars or the columns here in the front. And then this bottom square, these will be hid by dirt work. So all you'll really see is the brick columns. And then same with these porches. So there's basically 3 porches. There's the side porch, the back porch, which you might remember, and I'll have a lot more to say about that is supposed to look like a back porch, but it actually will be a lot of square footage and things. So it'll be a pantry, a mud room, a laundry room, a guest bath, a closet, and another bathroom for Luke and I. And so the look of the 3 porches is what we're going for. They will all have columns, even though the ones over here will just be pilasters and fake. They'll have bricks supporting those. And then, of course, the 2 other porches will have windows, whereas this front porch will just be open to take in the view. Now, of course, the grade will be a little higher. So there'll only be maybe 2 steps up. I think it'll be similar to our last house with that. This door here, this is the front door. This looks small and off center, but really there's just plywood covering the full opening. So it will be centered with the window above it. And then these have windows above them that are centered. As many of you know, I am in my 3rd trimester with our 9th baby, our first girl in 15 years. I make sure to focus on whole foods and proteins for my diet pre-pregnancy and during pregnancy. It's also super important to me to choose a high quality prenatal that will support my growing baby, my body, as I soon enter into the postpartum phase, nursing, and beyond. I want to say thank you to today's video sponsor, Needed. Needed was created by two mothers and trained nutritionists whose whole mission is to transform women's health through nutrition. They recognized the gaps that were in prenatal and postnatal care, so they developed a comprehensive nutritional system for fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and lifelong women's health. 95% of women are deficient in at least one key nutrient. This can happen for a variety of reasons, and it can happen despite a healthy diet. Most vitamins include bare minimum nutrition, and they're filled with sugars or fillers, none of which I want to be taking on a daily basis, especially when I'm trying to just support my health for my baby and my body. Pregnancy and postpartum are some of the most nutritionally demanding times in a woman's life, and for a lot of women, including myself, there have been back-to-back pregnancies that all are very demanding. And a mom and her baby's health now and for years to come is influenced by her nutrient status. So it makes sense to support this in the best way that you can. So Needed did a ton of research and studies to put together a prenatal that actually has proper doses to meet nutritional needs. Needed's prenatal multi is available in capsules and an easy to take vanilla powder that's perfect for nauseous moms or those with pill fatigue. I'm able to take pills just fine now, but in my first trimester, I really couldn't. My gag reflex was just too strong. And so having another option that could support me during such a crucial time where you really also don't feel like eating all the healthiest foods is essential. Right now, Needed is offering an additional 20% off your first order, including one-time purchases or already discounted subscriptions and plans. Head to the link in the description box below and use my code FarmhouseOnBoone. Again, thank you so much, Needed, for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so we'll walk in the front door. Now this is the way this front staircase works. So there will be a wall here, there will be a wall here, and then there will be a 50-ish inch opening that will have pocket doors in. So the wall will come, you know, just as far enough over as it has to for there to be a 50-inch pocket door opening. When you walk in the front door, there'll be a wall here and a cased opening for the kitchen. Then there'll be a wall here and then a pocket door opening for the living room. And this will just be an entry hall, I believe. So there'll be a piece of furniture here and it'll be a very closed concept, which I know not a lot of people do closed concept these days, but I really wanted this home to have a lot of nooks and crannies and spaces and rooms, places to spread out. And I love that coziness of an old house where there are lots of rooms. One thing we did keep quite open though is the kitchen area. So although you have to walk through a case opening to get into the kitchen, once you're in here, this is all open. It's kitchen, dining, and then there's a cased opening into a pantry that's really good size. And then another, there'll be French doors here out to the sun porch. So I imagine this kind of massive space will be where we do a lot of our living and gathering. That's how we typically do. And then if anybody, you know, wants to sit in the living room on the couch, watch a show, it would be across the entry hall and through the pocket doors. One of my big goals was to have a house that is just built for hosting. Of course, you can host anywhere, but I wanted this to be a house that was especially designed for that because I'm just picturing the future. You know, all of my kids are getting older. They have friends. They will, you know, eventually get married and have kids and all that stuff. And so I want there to be a ton of places to dine. This space here, we can fit our really large dining table. Right now we have a 9-foot table that seats 10. Obviously fit even a larger table, but I think that's what we'll do here. And then in this sun porch, you can't quite fit a 9-foot table, but you could fit a large table. And then I want to have another table right here on this front porch because it's so large and there's this window here. You know, I could just picture like these 3 eating areas and then yet another actually. Through these French doors from the sun porch would be another little eating area. Anytime there's a building, so you have, you know, a wall this way, a wall that way, to me, that's a good spot for maybe a flagstone or a gravel patio to put outdoor dining. And then you can easily come off of the kitchen through those French doors and those French doors. You could even pass things out the window because there will also be 2 windows here that is currently covered by plywood. So I'm just picturing so many spots for tables. A spot here, a spot here, a spot there and on the front porch. It truly feels like a place that we could host. And there's plenty of wide open space here within the kitchen, dining, sun porch for all of that. And then the rest of the house is very divided rooms. We have, I think I counted around 30 doors in this house, which is even a lot for an old house. I went into the house we're in now and I counted back at our last house and I think there was 16 doors in each of those. So this has a lot of doors, a lot of rooms. Now I am counting, you know, if there's 2 pocket doors, I'm counting both of those. If there's 2 French doors, I'm counting both of those. I really did want a cozy house with a lot of different rooms. I find them nice to decorate because they're separate. You can use a lot of color without having to find like lines to separate it out. And then I find them cozy. And so that is what we're kind of going for here. So let's go over to the sun porch again. I do want to show you the view to the barn. We're going to be going over to the barn. I can give you a little update there as well. Okay, so there's the barn. I will give a lot more explanation when we're over there about what's happening there, what all needs to happen, and let's go into the pantry through this stud that you won't be able to go through later. Actually, first let's talk about the kitchen. Okay, so we have already designed all the cabinetry. I mentioned in my last video that Brent Hall introduced me to Kennebec, and I really liked the historic look of their cabinetry. And so we are working on finalizing all those designs. They're pretty much done, and I'm gonna just show you a little bit about how that will lay out. I wanted a few furniture pieces and not just all cabinetry. Now we have a mixture of some that is very typical cabinetry and some that is more furniture based. So on this wall here, we are doing a hutch piece that will be wood, not painted. And it'll just look like an old hutch that you could, you know, put right there. That's where we'll probably keep plates and silverware. And then in the center here, we're doing an island, but just like in my last house, we're going to do more like a table so that it just visually feels like a piece of furniture. That will be painted. And then here to the right of the pantry opening, there will be floor to ceiling cabinetry where I'll keep like bulk food storage and all of that. And then in the actual pantry, there's sort of different plans. Here on this wall is where the range will go. So there'll be a little bit of cabinetry around the range. And then here on these 2 windows will be where the sink will go. The dishwasher will do a little trash can pull out thing there. So a couple furniture pieces, a couple of cabinetry pieces. I think it's gonna turn out really nice. Now I've been looking at colors and I really have been loving a yellow kitchen, mostly because I just want a super country look. Like with everything in here, that's what I keep thinking. I want this to look so country. You know, that's just my whole vibe, my whole style. I want tons of beadboard, tons of paneling and shiplap because that will give it that lived in, relaxed character. There are certain types of houses where I feel like they look fitting to have a mess. Like when it's really modern, super clean, I think they only really look nice when they're minimal and modern and clean and polished. And I know that's not what we're gonna have here. We have a farm. It will be a farm. Like we will actually have animals out here in the pasture. It's going to be a real farm. And so there's just going to be a need for that lived in look and it complements it well. And that's what I was really hoping to achieve. And you know, we'll see how well we achieve it right away at first. Maybe we'll have to make some modifications, but with everything, I'm trying to think about that. And so that's why I was thinking for the painted pieces, yellow would be really nice. And I think I've narrowed it down to maybe even just like 1 color at this point. All right, let's go here through the cased opening into the pantry. Now this whole thing isn't pantry. You'll see it's, there's no walls in here yet. Now the reason for that is with the casement windows that we're getting, there are built-in mullions between the windows, and my contractor is very hesitant and unsure about exactly where those will fall. We have back the shop drawings, but we still just want to confirm. So this, until the windows come in, is going to stay just like this, but I can walk you through how it should about fall just based on what I know about the spaces. Again, from this pantry window here, a great view of the barn. We will have the fridge and freezer freezer with a couple cabinets above here. Then there'll be a little table here that's supposed to look like a furniture piece, but again, Kennebeck's helping with that. So it'll look like a table that's kind of just slid in here, like the fridge will cover this side of it, but the idea is for it to look like an antique piece. It'll have a sink here, which is great. My daughter thinks this is kind of her little baking station, I guess. We didn't do any cabinetry here, and my thought is that I will find a piece that fits here. This here felt a little bit more specific, so it made sense to have that built. Whereas this here, once the piece of cabinetry that goes here, which that I'll go in a minute, is in, I just have to, you know, find a table that will fit. There'll be plenty of space here. So I do want to also leave plenty of space for collecting pieces as well, kind of filling in those gaps once you see them. So the pantry wall, let me think about this, should be, I believe, around here. There will be cabinetry on this whole entire wall. And mostly in that, I plan to put appliances, you know, that you can hide, that you plug in, that you use daily, something like an espresso machine or an Instant Pot or a blender, or things you don't use all the time. They'll be in here plugged in, so they'll be sort of stashed away, but you can still really get to them nicely, and that's what I'm really excited about in here. I love the way that this piece over here was designed. I'll pop a picture in of what we're thinking on the drawings for that, because it looks sort of like a furniture piece, but it's also going to give you the functionality of cabinets, of appliance storage. I plan to put all of the baking things in here, and then on that table that I said I was going to find somewhere, have that be a work surface, and then you have the fridge, the freezer in here. So if you want to bake in here, all you have to do is come out, you know, into the main kitchen to use the range. I feel like with so many things, you predict exactly how it's going to function. You imagine all the things that you're going to do, and then ultimately you'll just see how it turns out. But that's how I, at least for now, imagine that. We totally got excited, feeling like, oh, maybe we'll come open this casement window, hand kids some food through here. Hopefully we'll have some tables out here, and just really prioritizing a lot of outdoor space too was something that we wanted to make sure to do. That's why originally on the plans, we did not have this sun porch. We added it because I realized there was no way out of the kitchen easily. Now, obviously you can go to the front door, you can go to the back door, but I wanted another quick side escape from the kitchen because I live my life in the kitchen. This is the most important space to me. My kids, you know, we all kind of live our lives in the kitchen dining. And so just having this be, like they say, the heart of the home. You can go out to what, you know, will be a lot of play area back there. Through this is what we wanted. So back through the pantry. Again, this will be pantry. We have a pretty small laundry room. Really, it'll just fit on the back wall of it. Basically, it'll just fit a washer and a dryer. And that's how small it's going to be. But I really think that's okay. I've always had a small laundry room, and I know how to organize them to make small laundry rooms work. Okay, one room over from the laundry will be the mud room. So I'm gonna show you how I would actually do this. Luke's got the drone if you're wondering about the sound, but you'll see some nice drone footage. So you'll walk through this back mudroom door, side lights and a transom. And it's a pretty small mud hall is what we're kind of calling it. And when you first come through it, door number 1 here will go into the laundry. Door number 2 here will go into a guest bath. The mud hall really goes from about here to about here. So like I said, it's small because once you have the doors taken up those walls, you'll have room here for built-in cabinetry and here built-in cabinetry. We haven't really designed or planned that just yet. I feel like I just have too many things to think about, and I'll just measure it later and order cabinetry later when I just see how it turns out, basically. So probably for a year, this will just be a very non-functional space where we throw all of our boots and all of that. But some things I'm just like, I know I probably should think of that right now, but my mind is so focused on the other things that I'm like, well, once the doors are in and the trim is in and you see how much space you have to work with, and you could just, you know, find some solution for that. Maybe for a while I'll just throw in some antique pieces or something. And then I actually have a door here to match the door that we just came through. I found 2 from that old farmhouse that my dad was taking down. And so these 2 will match. So basically door number 1, door number 2 will be the same door. And then you come through here, and this is just a back hall. That's pretty much all it is. The function it serves is it has a cased opening to the kitchen, door to the basement, door to a little under the stairs closet, door to our bedroom, and doing vintage reclaimed antique doors. I'm trying to piece them together by where they will be in proximity to each other so they match. So I'm using the 3 most matching doors and matching hardware, even though they're all antique, they're all pieced together for these 3 doors. And then throughout the house, I kind of tried to do the same thing. As you can see, our room is not huge. It's actually quite small, at least this way, but that's because the way this house was organized with the central stair hall, we originally had the living room and then our room the same size, but I decided to give a lot more space to the living room. And then for us, you know, the bed will go from here to here. And then we'll have maybe a dresser or something, or in this corner, we want a little wood stove or a gas stove. We're really trying to figure that out because there's some problems there on how that might work out. So we'll see. But that's what we want over there. And then we want a couple of chairs there. So really utilize this long space, and then it'll just be cozy other than that. And then we have a pocket door into a closet. And then I have the same matching door again for this. I mean, you know, the same as they can be when they came out of 2 different houses from probably the same time period. But we're going to install this one pocket style for the closet, and then this one, you know, normal. This will be the bathroom. This will be a closet. The closet stops probably right here, and then it's that guest bath from here to the mudroom. So we packed a lot in this 500 square foot porch area. We packed a pantry, which is massive. It was hardly packed at all. It was very not, it's very spacious. Then we have the laundry, the mud hall, the guest bath, the closet, the bath. And I'm so excited because my clawfoot is going to sit underneath this window, which I'm real excited about. And then I call it Luke's shower because he's really excited to have a shower again, because we don't have a shower at all in our current house. We'll be somewhere in this area between these two. Will be a, you know, little shower, little vanity, toilet. And then we still have a little additional space here where I plan to put a little antique dresser or something for storage. I hope you're able to see what's going on. And it's not just me, you know, explaining it very abstractly. I feel like it looks more like something now you can kind of visualize the space. One thing I was not able to visualize at all, which I looked at the plans and for some reason didn't understand the staircase. I still honestly don't, but it looks like the plan. So I think we'll get it. But this is how they go now. So I pictured a big railing, but really, you know, it's just going to be a short little railing. There'll be walls on each side. I have pinned some beautiful images of how we will probably paint and decorate this to make it look old. But this stair, you know, obviously this is a rough stair that'll come out. Turns back, and then this brings you to basically, this is the most functional second floor. It has 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. So here's one of the bedrooms. You go through a little hall, have a little closet. The room's, you know, fairly small. And then in the room, you can go into a bathroom. And then if you want to go to the next room, go down the hall, into the room, same thing, closet. And then you can go into the bathroom. Now, one side will be the girls' bathroom, and we'll just block this door off with something like a bolt or something, because, you know, the boy that's in, or the boys that are in this bathroom, will need to go over to that one, because this is just going to be the girls. And then there's a back hall in the upstairs. There's a little understair closet. I found some really cute doors that will go in here that I just found that I'm really excited about. And then these rooms on this side, same thing with the closet. The rooms, though, are quite a bit larger with the way the stair hall worked out. And then the bathroom is the same footprint as the other side. There'll be a tub and shower here, vanity there, and a little linen closet and a toilet. One thing I'm trying to figure out with the kids' bathrooms is how cute I want to go and how just get it done practical I want to go. And I think I'm really leaning towards, like, I'll just try to do the easiest to keep clean thing and just not worry too much about the aesthetics of any of that, because this floor just feels like a super practical floor. Not that the whole house isn't, but as far as worrying about decorating it, I think that's kind of years down the line. And so I'm trying to decide, you know, do we just do like a vinyl insert tub, or just do the insert tub and do some tile and then a very basic vanity? Haven't fully decided. I have found some adorable tile patterns over on Restoration Tile, but we'll see how everything feels when we get to that point, or if I'm just gonna go easy, practical, get it done up here. I'm really Not sure. But we do have antique doors for all of this. So on this floor, you know, there's 4 kid bedrooms, 4 kid closets, 2 kid bathrooms with 4 doors, and then the 2 doors for that stair hall. So a lot of doors are being refinished for this area. There's a view from the front hall upstairs, and you can see more of the detail on the roof here. And then from this room, you can see the barn, and you can see a little detail on this sun porch, which I think is adorable. And then of course, all 3 porches are the same roof line. The front and back porches are the exact same size. All right, let's go to the attic. Now, one dream I had when designing this house, which sometimes I don't realize what I'm getting into when I say I want things that sound easy. That is, whew, so many things. Sounded easy, didn't it? But I really thought, well, since there's an attic, let's finish it out. Well, you need staircases for that. You need an HVAC for that. Yeah, so many things I just didn't think about it being harder to finish out an attic space, but then you realize really quickly why it is. I'm not saying I regret it yet because I love this space, but I am saying that it was a bigger deal. If you're gonna build a house and you're thinking, well, if you already have the attic space, you might as well finish it out. Just know it's going to be a little bit of a bigger deal, at least from my experience, than you might think. So obviously, instead of just, I don't know what they would normally use, but we had to use actual floor joists above the second floor for there to be a floor up here. We needed it to have light, so we added dormers to the back of the house. I didn't really want the look of dormers in the front, but I wanted light in the attic. And so we had to add dormers, and then we had to add a staircase, and then the HVAC guy said it'll be terrible up there, so you need mini splits. Let me show you. I think it's worth it. When you come up these stairs, you'll just be in a little hallway, and to the right, you'll have a door, and to the left, you'll have a door. The very short doors, they can only be 6 feet tall. Therefore, they have to be very skinny because all the antique doors I find, if they're short, they're skinny or proportional. So that's what we're gonna do. And then there will be windows over here. There's plywood covering them. They'll be just so cute. And plenty of light, because now you can kind of see the light that will be up here, because that will all be windows. That will all be windows. And then you'll have those additional windows. So that actually will be well-lit space, which I figured, if you are doing this, it might as well be very functional. We don't plan to use these as bedrooms. We plan to use these as sort of flex space because things change constantly with a large family. So right now, what we need most is, for me, I have a podcast and I do voiceovers for YouTube. And so having a place all the way up here where, the kids can all be in the kitchen being loud, I could be up here recording, would be really nice, really great for the family. So people don't have to go outside just for me to record something. So we're kind of thinking right now, immediate plans. This side would be my office-ish, recording place. I like it because the windows would see out to where kids are playing, the barn. The other side here would be sewing space because my 2 oldest daughters are really into sewing and they like to have projects going at all times, and having their own space for that would be really great. So don't worry, the boys, we have plenty of plans for them too, but this is what we are currently thinking will be really nice. Now, I know HVAC is running to the second floor through a lot of this, but if there's any place where it's not, which I don't remember if it's going to be here or just here, probably both. But if there's any place it's not, like over here, I really want to frame a little door, and maybe that's one of those things that you just will do later. But a little door there or somewhere to have a cute little attic closet. I realize that would be next to no space at all, so it's probably not worth it. But I really would love those little cozy nooks. That's just what I dream about. And that's why I wanted the attic space. And I will overlay a picture here. I found it on Pinterest. I love the painted floors. We're thinking about painted floors and beadboard and just it being cozy country attic space. I'm just really excited for it. Now, right now, it's not fun to bring kids here. I don't know if you can see that, but you can literally see to the basement, and that won't be like that when this is done. So it's very hazardous at this current time. For the flooring in the house, other than the attic, because the attic I want to do just cheap unfinished flooring, possibly even reclaimed, because we're going to paint it. And I have been learning more and more about linseed oil paint, and it doesn't, apparently I haven't used it yet, but it doesn't chip. It just fades over time, and you can spruce it up with linseed oil. And so the floors that we're going to paint, I want to just do unfinished wood, paint them with linseed oil paint, and hopefully that'll hold up really well. We're also thinking about doing the same thing, linseed oil paint for the barn siding. So I didn't mention on the front porch, but we're planning to do tongue and groove unfinished wood and do linseed oil paint, and then also to make the back porch look like a porch add-on that became square footage. I'd really like to do the same. Now, I'm not 100% sure if in the bathroom we'll have painted floors, but at least in the laundry, the pantry, I'm thinking that's what we're going to do. It'll be a little bit wider than the flooring in the main house because historically, and in the house I'm in right now, which is a historic house, the inside floor measures a lot smaller width-wise than the porch floor. And so it'll be a little bit of a different floor. I'm not gonna get a super nice grade because it'll be painted. Whereas in the inside, I really have my heart set on heart pine because I love the orange look of heart pine. It just looks like a historic house to me. I really wanted to do reclaimed. I haven't had any luck finding reclaimed. And so there's a mill, I believe it's in Georgia, that does heart pine. And so I'm hoping that's what we'll do in the main 2 levels of the house. And then in the attic and the porches, we'll do just some like 4-inch unfinished wood from Lowe's, probably whatever's cheap, and paint it with linseed oil paint. That is sort of my plan for all of those spaces. I thought about even in the attic doing something super wide, like a wide plank floor. To me, that might just make sense in an attic. So probably 4-inch on the 3 porches, 3 1/4 on the main 2 levels of heart pine, and then something wide painted in the attic. That's where I'm leaning right now. All right, I'm gonna take you back down, head to the barn, and update you there. Cannot wait till this basement's covered. Nothing cool to see there. It's just a scary dark basement. Probably most of the time, I will head to the barn this way. Now there will be steps. Now the way that we came up with the spacing for the barn and the house, which was kind of stressful because it was just like a raw piece of land. You could do anything. And it was like, okay, which way will we angle the house? Which way will we angle the barn? How far to the barn? We just measured at our last house the distance between the house and the barn. We figured it was a historic property. They had some reason for doing that. Now that we're not married to that. Like if it didn't make sense to do this, we wouldn't have. But it just felt so random that we wanted some kind of something to go off of. And we knew we wanted plenty of space between the house and the barn to, just have like entertainment area. And we have space here. We have plenty of space on each direction. And so it didn't make sense to put them super tight, really. So I think we ended up going with 130 feet. We made it a little less than our last place, which was 160, mostly just because we want plenty of pasture too. So we want this to actually be a barn that we can use, and we want pasture. And so there's pasture still quite a bit that way. We didn't want to get the homestead too huge because, we walked from the barn to the house a lot at our last property. It was a little far. So we just kind of took that 160 measurement, took a little bit off of it. That's where we landed. But when you're in the house looking down at the barn, it honestly feels perfect. It feels perfect. And then our favorite thing is, this is something you can't really tell till you get it up, and you hope you made the right decision. But when you're standing here at this front barn door, what will be a front barn door, it's just such a nice view. And so I think we did make the right call. We found a local shop that collected so much barnwood, and we picked up more barnwood because we wanted to frame in a few windows. We wanted to have more support beams here on the back so we can add siding to all of that. So instead of just getting fresh new pine, we were able to collect barnwood for all of that. Luke and I actually came out this morning because this was their project for today, was framing in the windows. This was such a debate, not between the two of us, but just in general, like what size windows, where should they go? And I can tell you why we landed on this. Now, I will say when you're standing here, the windows are up there. You might think, why so high? So our builder, even though, on the little plan thing, I kind of showed where we wanted them to go visually, he was definitely thinking way lower so you could see out of them. And honestly, we questioned it too. And I still really hope we made the right decision. I'm not saying this like he was wrong, we were right. I really don't know, and I hope we were right. But we were, again, using some historic precedent. I talk about Brent Hall and how he helped us design a lot. And the thing that he constantly talks about is using historic precedent. And when I look at old barns, they never have these huge windows that are low to the ground that, that you can see out of, probably because of you know, the needs for the animals and whatnot. They weren't at a level of the animals. They were higher than that. They were small. We don't want it to look like a modern barn. We want it to look like an old barn. We went with that. And I hope, you know, we kind of just made it up. I asked Luke, at our last house, there was windows on one side. I was like, how tall were they? He was like, well, if I stood on my tippy toes, I could kind of see out them. So I said, okay, well then come in here. When the guys were here today, I was like, stand on your tippy toes. Where does it land? And that's what we came up with. So, you know, down here, they feel high, I'll say. But then when we were up at the house, looking down at the barn from inside, they almost even look low. And so we feel like we made sort of the right decision. Like they're too high down here, too low up there. And then the amount of windows and the size, we decided to go with pretty small windows. They're only 22 by 29 barn sash windows is what they're called. And we'll put some trim around the outside. We did not do very many. We did 2 here. There'll be 2 there. I think we're gonna just put 1 in the gable end here. No more. Huge door. So of course for light, you could just open the doors. And then 2 here that match the other side. And then there'll be 2 here that match that side. And then in the back, I don't care as much because it's not a view you see very much. And also just for more light, we're putting 3. So we're putting 2 and then 1 up in the gable. So that's what we came up with. We'll see. Oh man, there's so many decisions, I tell you. And at some point, you know, you dream and dream and dream and dream about this project. And then at some point, you're just here and you got to make a decision. They're like, well, where do you want the windows? We're like, okay, well, I guess this is the time now. We have to come up with this. For the roof decking, we went to the same guy that had all the old barn wood, asked him if he could get enough old barn wood for roof decking. And he said, that'll be really expensive, really difficult. So we opted instead to just go with new rough sawn pine. And our plan was to use a product called Eco Wood Treatment, and it grays it out because obviously this is on the inside. So it's really not going to gray out on its own. I mean, maybe a little over time, but once the roof goes on, it should be pretty weather protected and you won't really have to, you know, it should get some color. So Luke tested it. We bought a 5-gallon amount. He tested it on one board. And then we came back the next day here after Luke had delivered all the rough sawn pine that we got in. And our builders kind of were at a stopping point on the house with some things they were waiting on. So they just moved down here and I failed to tell them that we were planning to do that. So it just, you know, they were already up. And so now the only way to do that treatment would be to make it nice and gray, would be to, you know, get like scaffolding. I don't know if you can tell the scale, but this barn is really tall. I mean, it's up there. But we decided, and maybe this is just like our little way of taking something off our to-do list, that it's a nice contrast and that maybe we will never do it, you know, because it makes the timbers, the old timbers, stand out against that white background as opposed to making it look old as well. And then Luke said, well, he's not near as into all this historic stuff as I am. It's like, well, wouldn't it make sense that they got a new roof, that like the wood sheathing at some point rotted and they needed a new roof? So they got a new metal roof, so they put on new sheathing. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So there's the story. That's why it is white. Asked over on Instagram what this peak thing is called. I got Widow's Peak, hay hood, lots of answers. Nonetheless, we did one. Our builder knew just how to do it. I love it. I think it's so cool. I think it just looks really neat. We used some of that reclaimed wood we got to make the actual little peak. And then of course it's just covered with the rough sawn pine. I'm convinced though, building, you know, I've lived in 3 houses now as a married adult, you know, paid a lot of attention to the house, made the house work for our family. And you never overanalyze anything this much once it's already there. It's only in the process of having to make the decisions that you worry. Like, it's funny because we're literally basing a lot of our decisions off of things we observed on an actual old property at our last place. And who knows if that wasn't just some quick decision that they made at one point at some time. And, you know, because it was already there like that, I'm like, well, it must be right. Those people are right because it's like that. And so I'm hoping, my point is that likely once we're here, you're past all of this of making every possible tiny decision with a raw piece of land and building buildings that, you know, just weren't here before, that you'll just kind of accept it is what it is and just, you know, you can make anything work. I always noticed, like, I can set up a home and make it work. And so I'm trying to not overthink it. And trust me, I am overthinking it and I am letting it get stressful to me, to be honest, very much so. But I think ultimately we'll have a house and it'll work. And I think it'll more than work. I think it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a long process, a lot more decisions to make, but I'm trying to remember to just take it one day at a time, address the concern for the day and not much beyond that. And some days I do great and I'm feeling really good about it all, and some days I don't. And so we'll see how the next 6 months, year unfolds. I'm hoping 6 months. I don't know, but there's the update. Let me know if you have any questions. If you like updates like this, I love making them. So I would love to continue just to take you along on the process as we build out our homestead.